Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Steve Bainbridge and I work for CEDEFOP, the European Centre for the Development of Vocational Training, based here in Piraeus in Thessaloniki. I should like to thank you for your invitation to speak to you today at the ICIB conference and apologise for not being able to be with you in person. Unfortunately, an unforeseen change in schedule means that I have to replace my director at a meeting in the UK, and so I apologise for not being there with you. As you may tell from my accent, I am a British national, and some of you may or may not be interested in the current state of referendum, the question about whether or not the UK will remain or leave the European Union and what the current state of that is. And so before I begin my remarks, I will try to give you some insights for those of you who are interested in that. The country is very divided over what the UK's future should be. The country is split in terms of England as opposed to Scotland, Ireland and Wales. It is divided between young and old, between rich and poor, between north and south in its support for either staying in or leaving the European Union. Even families are divided. My own family is one such case. My mother and father will vote to leave the European Union, irrespective of the fact that their son has worked diligently to construct Europe for the past 20 years, whereas my children, those who are old enough to vote, are quite clear in their determination to stay in the European Union. And so that is the current state of affairs. My own personal prediction is that the UK will vote to remain in the European Union, but the vote will be very close. I don't think that the vote for the European Union will rise above 55%, and the situation is so close that any event, either for or against the European Union, could actually tip the balance of the result. But nevertheless, I hope next year that I will be invited to be with you in person and the UK will still be in the European Union, and also we can discuss a brighter future for Greece. But for the next 15 minutes or so, I would like to talk to you rather than with you about what jobs people will do in the future. Now, in March of this year, 2016, AlphaGo, a computer, defeated at the ancient Chinese game of Go a man called Lee Sedol. He is from South Korea and is generally regarded as the best player in the world of Go. Now, in East Asia, Go enjoys a similar status to chess in the West. But while in chess, the number of possible games is around 10 to the power of 47. Go has an estimated number of possible games of 10 to the power of 170, which is actually a number bigger than there are atoms in the observable universe. So a computer won at this game. And alongside this unnerving example of the rise of the machines are predictions that around 47% of jobs in the United States and a similar number in Europe are at high risk of being automated out of existence over the next 10 to 20 years. However, ever since the silicon chip first came to public attention in the 1970s, people have prophesied the end of stable, full-time, permanent jobs. But the step up from chess to Go has not been overnight. It is almost 20 years since, in 1997, Garry Kasparov, one of the best chess players in the history of the game, was beaten at chess by Deep Blue, another machine. And for now, general purpose machine intelligence remains a long way off. Computers still cannot do many of the things that come easily to people. For example, the ability to apply lessons learned in one area to another. And in the world of work, there are, at least for the moment, reasons to be optimistic about the future demand for people. Prior to the economic crisis in 2008, despite advances in new technology, the European Union was enjoying a record employment rate. After 2020, employment in the European Union is forecast to pass this previous peak, and in some countries it already has. Also, according to Eurostat, only 15% of the European workforce is self-employed, and less than 15% has a contract of limited duration. But technology is clearly having an impact on the world of work, and it is important to distinguish between three different types of impact: job substitution, job creation, and job transformation. First, concerning job substitution, technology does not respect skill levels. For example, an airline pilot is a highly skilled job, whereas a taxi driver does not require such high-level qualifications. However, we have pilotless aeroplanes, drones, but as yet we do not have driverless taxis. Jobs and tasks in a job are more vulnerable to substitution by technology if they are routine. Piloting an aeroplane from here to London is not easier than driving around Thessaloniki, but it is less routine. Traffic flows, pedestrians, parked cars, traffic lights all vary, and as yet we have not yet developed a computer able to deal with all the malachias on the roads in Thessaloniki. Technology can also create jobs. It enables enterprises to make existing products better and more efficiently, and to make new things. Technology also brings down barriers to entry. Small firms and individuals are already publishing and distributing books and music via the internet, and creating apps for smartphones, computers, and enabled TVs. Three-dimensional printing enables bespoke manufacturing by small firms. Lower barriers to entry also reduces risk, and so may increase the number of budding entrepreneurs starting businesses. New jobs that did not exist 10 years ago include digital marketing specialist, social media manager, applications designer, search engine optimization specialist, blogger, and a particular favourite of mine, chief listening officer. But technology's most important impact is job transformation. And there is a problem in distinguishing between job substitution and job transformation. Banks in the late 1980s, in the UK as I recall, introduced automatic cash machines, and they used the technology to cut staff and close branches. People in the UK couldn't get into a bank except at lunchtime, and when you went into the bank there was no one there because all the staff were on lunch. But now cash machines are everywhere, in supermarkets and other places in the street. But banks are open longer than they were before. Some banks you can call 24 hours a day. And in the banks now, there are nice people working there because banks need the people to reassure and to persuade you to deposit your savings and take out mortgages and loans with them, rather than some other, less caring, less efficient bank. And so technology in itself does not make businesses competitive. It is the people that use it. Technology can perform tasks and collect data, but people need to decide what those tasks will be and what the data mean. Technology cannot innovate, but people can. Price and quality will always be important, but often the competitive edge lies in the quality of service that only people can deliver. Customers will pay more for personal interaction. And that's why banks need people. It's why supermarkets continue to have cashiers, and why fast food restaurants still have people to serve you, even though technology could do all of those jobs. So if the major effect is for technology to become job transforming, then what will people be doing in the future? In the 1940s, the great British economist John Maynard Keynes thought we would all be doing less and less. We'd work fewer hours and have more leisure time, but certainly that has not come to pass. In fact, many people in work are working more hours than ever, and despite technology, jobs are becoming more demanding. With technology doing the routine stuff, in the jobs of the future, people will have to think, communicate, organise and deal with varied non-routine tasks. Most people will be working in private and public sector services that indirectly or directly improve their clients' quality of life, such as health, social services, tourism and education. Jobs where people deal with people. This includes traditional trades and trade and crafts workers, such as electricians, plumbers and joiners, whose work tends to overlap both the construction and services sectors. Consequently, workers will need to be adaptable, learn new ideas, methods and techniques. Moreover, employers will be seeking these skills to differing degrees in all types of jobs at all levels. For example, foreign languages and advanced reading and writing skills are not only now required by professionals, but increasingly, for example, by personal care workers, many of whom have not been traditionally highly qualified. Consequently, all economic sectors, including traditional ones such as agriculture, manufacturing and construction, will need more people with high-level qualifications, notably people with qualifications in the STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering and maths. But technology is not just transforming job content, but also working times, because often people want things now. Already, around 5 million people work shifts in the UK, and estimates are that half of all London nighttime bus passengers are travelling to or from work. Technology is reinforcing this trend because it increases the scope for modularisation. Work can be broken down into distinct units that can be separated from each other, both spatially and, importantly for employment, contractually. Examples of this are provided in extended international supply chains, which are increasingly being used for delivering services as well as for manufacturing goods. Amazon and eBay have turned shopping into a platform experience, and Uber is doing the same with the taxi market. Work modules are connected through these online platforms. They operate through networks and are less rigidly focused on a specific workplace or around specific hours, as these platform workers are expected to be available when needed. An advantage of platform working is that it makes it easier to enter markets. Think of all those retired consultants who are now busier than ever, travelling here and there and submitting their work online. Platform working can certainly work well as a supplementary form of income, but what about as someone's main job? What is a platform worker's status? How do national and European labour laws apply to them? How are people insured? Who is responsible for quality? And how do people update their skills and qualifications? These questions move us away from what people will do in the future into the area of how we will manage the advance of technology in the future. There will be no lack of work to do. There never has been in human history. The key questions are around how we organise ourselves to ensure that work is accessible and rewarding, both in a personal and financial sense. And in concluding, I should just like to highlight 3 issues which, along with technology, will also affect the labour market and have important implications for what people will do in the future. The first is aggregate demand. Austerity is the new orthodoxy. There indeed is virtue in restoring balance to public accounts, but a price must be paid if deflationary policies become the norm. The IMF downgraded its forecast for economic growth in March of this year. Over-reliance on monetary policy is inflating asset prices rather than supporting the real economy, and negative interest rates are making the banks more reluctant to lend. There are calls for using fiscal policy and increases in public spending and investment to boost the economy, and these actions are also important in the new digital world. If more and more jobs will be in providing services to improve the quality of life, it needs to be noted that many of those services are delivered by the state and by public employees. According to Baumol's rule, while disinflation can deliver cheaper goods, the labour-intensive nature of services means that they inevitably become more expensive. Beethoven's Ninth Symphony lasts for 45 minutes and requires a full orchestra and a choir. We can reduce the costs of providing recordings of it, but if you want to hear it live, you cannot reduce it to 20 minutes or cut the string section. You can manufacture drugs more cheaply, but you cannot have half an operation. You can have fewer teachers, but not half a lesson. You can have fewer care workers, but it still takes a certain amount of time to cook, feed and clean for someone. If the state is not prepared to cover the costs of these services for those who cannot otherwise afford them, then who else will pay and who will provide the jobs? Aggregate demand, the role of the public purse matter. Second, labour market regulation and social security. It is both unfeasible and undesirable to try to stop the digital revolution through regulation. In the early 20th century, there was a law to restrict the speed of cars to 4 miles per hour on the basis of public safety and to protect the horse. Such a regulation clearly would not work now. This does not mean that we should not regulate, but we need to be smart about how we do it. As discussed earlier, the status of platform workers needs to be defined. The labour market's regulatory framework needs to be adapted to the needs of a platform economy. How exactly, I do not know, but there must be an evidence-based regulatory policy that focuses on preventing an abuse of market power. The advance of technology in the world of work also raises fears about growing inequality. This concern arises precisely because technology is no respecter of skill levels. If the advance of technology affected only the poor and the uneducated, people would not be so concerned. But this time, it affects the middle class. To address these problems, and in recognition of the sometimes fragmented nature of platform working, some have suggested introducing a basic income for all that is given to the individual, irrespective of their labour market status or income. Others argue for a job guarantee, extending the current young person's guarantee, for example, to adults. I do not propose to comment on these proposals at this time, but they are important issues concerning the labour market that will affect the world of work and the jobs that people will do in the future. And third and last is the issue of complementarity between humans and technology. The lesson of history since the Industrial Revolution so far is that technology has always changed the nature of work, but the demand for workers has continued to increase. To avoid the mistakes of the banks of the 70s in reducing staff only to find that you need them later, employers should see technology less as a way to substitute people, but more as a way to complement their skills. Even cognitive technology that can think, will require human interaction if it is to be effective. Technology is a tool. It will not in itself grow your business. Toyota has become one of the largest and most profitable car manufacturers in the world by combining people with technology rather than simply trying to replace them. So complementarity between people and technology, and not substitution of people by technology, must be the mindset. How we manage aggregate demand, labour market regulation, social security and complementarity is not a question of technology, but of politics. So I should like to conclude with a story of a car factory owner showing a trade union official around the factory. Robots were everywhere, assembling the cars, and the entire process was smooth, uninterrupted, clean and efficient. Filled with pride, the factory owner turns to the trade union official and asks, "How many of these robots will you bring out on strike?" And the trade union official replies, "How many of these robots will buy your cars?" Technology is transforming work, not destroying it. Humans and technological change are compatible. We have been since we first walked the planet, and through technology, humans have become to dominate the planet. How we manage technology, more than technology itself, will determine what work we do in the future. Thank you for listening. I apologise again for not being with you. If you have any questions, I leave my email address, and I'm quite happy for you to send questions to me, and I will do my best to reply to them. Thank you very much for listening.